I'll start with a short reading from Ajahn Chah, and then I'd like to explore a sutta. When I had been practicing for only a few years, I still could not trust myself. But after I had experienced much, I learned to trust my own heart. When you have this deep understanding, whatever happens, you can let it happen. And everything will just rise and pass away. You will reach a point where the heart tells itself what to do. There's a sutta that I've been reading lately that I quite like, and it's really long, but I'll give you the gist, and then read the part that feels kind of like a poem. It's, Mike has asked the Buddha, essentially, how to let go of the self and allow wisdom to rise. And in this, tradition and this framework in Buddhist teaching, letting go of the self is kind of like, I like the term actually, selfing is like a modern term. It's kind of sweet, like, how am I making this about me? What in this is inherently suffering, and what in this is me adding suffering based on my wishes, my likes, my dislikes, my habits, my interests. How am I making this about me? That's when we start to suffer. The kids introduced a phrase to me a while ago. It said, having a main character moment. Mom, are you having a main character moment? Why, yes, I am. I thought I was the main character. But the timbre of that is, you're making too much out of this. You're making it about you, and it's really about something else. You having a main character moment. And so, if I may mix eras, this monk is asking the Buddha how to have fewer main character moments, be less wrapped up in self and self. Ego, maybe, is another term that we know. And allow wisdom to arise. And the term that's used in the sutta is self-effacement. And we know that term to be like, kind of making ourselves smaller or lesser. But the translation really here is one of letting go, allowing something to be rubbed out, allowing something to be fading away. So not to get confused by that term effacement or self-effacement, what the Buddha is saying is to be less attached to the self. These things are needed. And what's interesting, and I guess this is probably my reading of it, I'll take responsibility for this interpretation, but what's interesting is in the beginning, Buddha talks about jhana, so these deeper levels of meditation. And he goes through the 8 kind of deeper levels of meditation one by one. And sort of the punchline, if I may, after each one is, that's not self-effacement. That's blissful states. So he's sort of saying, yes, you can meditate, you should meditate, it's important to meditate. There are all these, kind of ways to deepen your meditation practice, but that's not letting go of self. That's enjoying blissful states. So don't get it confused. And then he goes on to list these 44. Just stay with me here. These 44 things that are, you'll get in the groove like I do, that are self-effacement, ways to allow the self to take a back seat and allow wisdom to arise. And what I want you to do as you're hearing these words is recognizing they're just words in a way. Like we need not get caught up in, he's talking to monks, so words like chaste or offensive. Don't think about, well, what does chaste mean and what does not chaste mean and what does offensive mean and what does not offensive mean. Just allow kind of the words and the tone of this list to kind of permeate the heart and see what it feels like to be curious about a life lived in this way. So again, the training of the very last sentence of the previous section on meditation, he says, they might think they're practicing self-effacement, but in the training of the Noble One, these are not called self-effacement, they're called peaceful meditations. So yes, we all want peaceful meditations, but the big picture is letting go of suffering. Now, Cunda, you should work on self-effacement in the following ways. Others will be cruel, but here we will not be cruel. Others will kill living creatures, but here we will not kill living creatures. Others will steal, but here we will not steal. Others will be unchaste, but here we will not be unchaste. Others will lie, but here we will not lie. Others will speak divisively, but here we will not speak divisively. Others will speak harshly, but here we will not speak harshly. Others will talk nonsense, but here we will not talk nonsense. Others will be covetous, but here we will not be covetous. Others will have ill will, but here we will not have ill will. Others will have wrong view, but here we will have right view. Others will have wrong thought, but here we will have right thought. Others will have wrong speech, but here we will have right speech. Others will have wrong action, but here we will have right action. Others will have wrong livelihood, but here we will have right livelihood. And for those of you who don't know, this part is a reference to the Noble Eightfold Path. So there's a lot to unpack there that we won't have time to today, but he goes through it. Others will have wrong effort, but here we will have right effort. Others will have wrong mindfulness, but here we will have right mindfulness. Others will have wrong immersion or concentration, but here we will have right immersion. Others will have wrong knowledge, but here we will have right knowledge. Others will have wrong freedom, but here we will have right freedom. Others will be overcome with dullness and drowsiness, but here we will be rid of dullness and drowsiness. Now here are the hindrances to meditation and states of happiness. Others will have doubts, but here we will have gone beyond doubt. Others will be irritable, but here we will be without anger. Others will be acrimonious, but here we will be without acrimony. Others will be offensive, but here we will be inoffensive. Others will be contemptuous, but here we will be without contempt. Others will be jealous, but here we will be without jealousy. Others will be stingy, but here we will be without stinginess. Others will be devious, but here we will not be devious. Others will be deceitful, but here we will not be deceitful. Others will be pompous, but here we will not be pompous. Others will be arrogant, but here we will not be arrogant. Others will be hard to admonish, but here we will not be hard to admonish. I love this one especially. Others will have bad friends, but here we will have good friends. Others will be negligent, but here we will be diligent. Others will be faithless, but here we will have faith. Others will be conscienceless, but here we will have a sense of conscience. Others will be imprudent, but here we will be prudent. Others will be unlearned, but here we will be well learned. Others will be lazy, but here we will be energetic. Others will be unmindful, but here we will be mindful. Others will be witless, but here we will be accomplished in wisdom. And finally, others will be attached to their own views, holding them tight, refusing to let go. But here we will not be attached to our own views, not holding them tight, but we will let them go easily. And then it goes on, still longer, but just a couple of things from the rest of the sutta that I think are useful to keep in mind. He says, Cunda, I say that even giving rise to the thought of skillful qualities is very helpful, let alone following that path in body and speech. That's why you should give rise to the following thoughts. Others will be cruel, but here we will not be cruel. And so he's saying, when I go through that list, I think, I have an awful lot of work to do. But then the Buddha, reads my mind and says, well, start by thinking about it. Start by contemplating it. Start by giving it some consideration. We don't have to start at the top. Right thought comes before right speech, which comes before right action in the Buddha's Eightfold Path. And that's not by accident, it's by design. Because the Eightfold Path is based on reality. And everything we do is preceded by, our mind's work. And then finally, I really appreciate this. He said, if you're sinking in the mud yourself, Cunda, it is quite impossible for you to pull out someone else who is sinking in the mud. But if you're not sinking in the mud yourself, it is quite possible for you to pull someone else who is sinking in the mud. And then at the end, 44 items have been stated. organized into 5 sections. Venerable Cunda is saying this. He approved what the Buddha said, and then he says, 44 items have been stated, organized into 5 sections. Effacement is the name of this discourse, which is as deep as the ocean. And, I appreciate this discourse because it's aspirational without being overwhelming to me. And it paints quite a beautiful picture of what community can look like. And, even maybe working diligently on 10 of those 44 items would bring me closer to happiness, wisdom, put me in a supporting role, if I may return to the original metaphor, take me out of the main character moment and help me be a really strong supporting role. And I appreciate that they're all things, they're aspirations and they're moods and they're states of mind, but they're also really imbued with a lot to do. There's work to be done in those 44 items. And for me, and I think this is kind of at the heart of the Buddha's teachings and path, doing the next right thing is what creates the habit to do it again, and do it again, and do it again. So really picking up something out of that list, and I have over the years worked diligently on a variety of those items. Jealousy, working on dealing with jealousy, working on dealing with irritability and anger, working on dealing with unskillful speech, working on dealing with all kinds of things that, or as Ajahn Chah would say, less than beautiful. Less than beautiful. Not wrong, but not beautiful. We could parse that or argue those terms or whatever. Maybe some of it is wrong or right or whatever, but the Buddha talked in terms of skillful and unskillful, useful and unuseful, wholesome and unwholesome, settling and unsettling, balancing and unbalancing. And so we have a place to look for learning whether we're getting results. Something is just right and something is just wrong, then we're going to have to look outside of us for that bar, aren't we? Okay, well, who says what's right? Then I'll ask them if I'm doing it right. Who says what's wrong? Then I'll ask them if I'm doing it wrong. And then somebody else is setting the bar, and I have to check in with them or that set of rules or, this authority. But the Buddha pointed back to ourselves over and over. When I follow this path, when I work on these, pieces, do I feel happier, more generous, kinder, easier to be around, quicker to love, faster to work? I can check in with myself. I don't need to check in with an authority about what's right and what's wrong. I've got this framework, which is really useful. But we can be turning back. Am I doing the work? Is it having the results? How does it feel? Am I, putting these aspirations into place? And it's the wording is a little tricky for me because it kind of has this sense of othering. Others will this, but we will this. Others will this, but we will this. And I think, how we can hold that is not as creating others or creating sort of better than, same as, less than. Instead, we can hold it by saying, I can't control that. I can control this. Others may be, I'm going to stop right there. but I can control this. Sometimes. I'm working on it. I can look for good friends. I can spend time in spiritual community. I can spend time in meditation. I can spend time developing goodness and generosity and kindness and diligence and letting go, no matter what others are up to. And I tend to, I was saying this to Jim last week, but I tend to rise or sink to the level of my company. This I know about myself. This I know about myself. This is why I'm here. So if you know what you need, go get it. If you know what you need, go get it. I think that's what most of us are doing here. We've seen what we need, and we've gone to get it. So I think I'll leave that there.